Very excited to be here and share our story. I come from 30 plus years of being in the industry, both from a commercial standpoint in my early career, and then to a home building side for the last probably 15 or 20 years. So what I'd like to show you today is a little about the work that we've been doing, and it really starts to talk about what's the problem. And I think we all know the problem. We talked about it over sometime yesterday and this morning about labor and the trades, is a huge issue. But what's under the surface of that is really pretty remarkable, we think. So if you looked at labor productivity over the last 50 years in non-farm sector industries, it's improved 150%. And this industry is actually declining. And this very, very scary footnote to that, it's declining with the skilled workforce that's going away. So that's a big problem. Next, we can check this box, right? No need to spend much time on that one. Let's check the tons of material waste. And this was referred to earlier today, the McKinsey Global Institute report about the fact that this industry is one of the least digitized industries in the world, right above hunting and farming. Now, farming is taking some big leaps. I didn't know hunting was an industry. Apparently it is, but we'll move on. But we believe this big problem is the greatest opportunity. So what we are very energized about is this notion of taking digital control of the building process. So enter our company, DIGIBILT. And this morning, some of the conversation this morning just set this up so beautifully, where Clark's saying, well, it's all about the why. So here you go. Why? So why should we take digital control? Really, very, very simply, we believe it's to increase labor productivity, reduce material waste, simplify the building process. Now, I'm from the industry, so I can say this, it's a mess. And increase profit. This is not just profit for the builder, it's to take non-value added waste out so everybody wins. And then finally is attract trade talent. So how can a software solution attract trades? So we'll walk you through that. So we built this thing knowing a little bit about the industry, but we wanted to look at who benefits from this. If this is going to be successful, we believed we had to build this from the bottom up, the top down, sideways, and get everybody involved in the ecosystem here. And we thought about what could we do to make it more effective for the people in the work that are installing, basically making your product as a builder, and also integrating suppliers' materials into those products. And we also think the other beneficiary here is everybody involved in the building ecosystem. So that was, that's a pretty big goal. And so how we do this. So it starts with pre-construction, and we talked this morning about BIM, and I'll give you some more comments about that as we move forward. But we start by creating the digital model of the house, and then automatically producing a bill of materials and a schedule. That's what our technology does. We'll drill into that in a moment. On the construction side, providing construction instructions, and then we're going to do this really outrageous thing, and it's called measure labor productivity. This industry has about 3.5 billion hours of construction labor. And guess what? Nobody's measuring it. If you were in any other industry in the world, people would just not believe that. Yet we do it, and we do it because, that's the subcontractors, and somebody's got to take responsibility and create a platform for which this could sit on. And then next, we kind of love this, we couldn't help ourselves, we called it the Built ID. So think of that as like a VIN for a car, because we have that information, and then certifying the process, and then capturing the data. This is so critically important because I was talking to Dan Swift yesterday. He says, data should be a line item on the balance sheet. Yep. I don't know how we can do that, but the data, there's so little data about what's being built and how it's being built and all the details about that. So that is the overview. And it starts with creating the digital model. We're using kind of the gold standard in the industry. We're using Revit. It's a building information modeling tool. And I would also just warn everybody that when people talk about we use BIM, it's like the silver bullet. It's not. It's not. you got to go beyond that, and you got to define how you're going to use, the building information modeling tool of choice. So what we do is we take it to a hyper accurate level. So there's there's the hose bib and the T and the cap and the 90-degree plumbing fittings. And what our team does is we take it and we model the entire plumbing system. And then the next thing that happens, we're going to model the mechanical system, the ductwork, and see how that all fits together. Clash detection was talked about earlier. And then we're going to see how that all fits into the building frame. And for the Simpson strong tie guys, check it out. We got that in there somewhere. So this is the level that we take it to. And I'm going to pause for a moment on this, because what happens for us is when we have onboarding sessions with the subcontractors, the builder subcontractors. So we had just recently, we're in this area with the customer we have here. There's about 15 or so subs in the room, or people in the room. It's like Christmas morning opening up the package. When they see this, they're going, wow. And then the framer says, you know what, I would frame the windows like this, and we change it. And it's just, we built a digital twin effectively. But now, so all we've done at this point is we've taken Revit to an extreme level. That might just make us nuts, not anything special. So what we've done now is the technology that we've built, we have a couple of patents on it, does the following. So we're going to go into that model, and we're going to go into our system, and we're going to pick a particular house, and the race is on here. And within about 5 seconds, what we've done is we've queried about 32,000 data points in the Revit model to automatically produce a digitally accurate bill of materials. 5 seconds. I used to do estimating. I hated it. Colored pencils, counting, inefficient, subject to human error and waste and judgment, all that stuff, right? Now the next thing is because we've been in the industry, we have a database of optimized crew size and labor productivity rates. And by the way, you can't ask a subcontractor what's the productivity rate to install this concrete block wall, because they don't talk that way. But what you can ask the subs is, hey, for this 2,000 square foot house, how long is it going to take? How many guys and how long to frame this, this floor? And they can answer that question. So we built that. So here we go. We're going to go in our dashboard here. We're going to pick a digital model. We're going to select a schedule template. And we're going to do something really cool here. On the left side, these are pieces of material, and we're going to attach that to an assembly labor activity. So we've connected the material to an assembly labor activity. And then we're going to hit this button, and the race is on again. And for some reason, it's around 5 seconds again, and we've created a 160 line item critical path schedule. That is absolutely tied to the quantities that are in the Revit model. So we've done that. This is, by the way, this is not aspirational. This is done. This is built. The next thing we're going to do, so now we're in the construction phase. So think about how it happens today. Site manager, superintendent goes into the 25 active houses and finds out it's 11 o'clock when he got into the 25th house and the plumber's not there. And that's repeating itself all over the country. Here's what we do. Because we know who's supposed to be there in the morning, here's the carpenter showing up, and this will be the next guy here. This is the carpentry foreman. He is going to get a automated text message, and it's going to say, hey, Bob, how many guys do you have today? Pretty simple question. He responds, we respond back digitally. Great, you have the right number of guys. And our builder customer gets a labor report about who was on site. The other beneficiary of this is the owner of the trade company. So now they know, because they've got a fixed price with the builder, so now they know their guys showed up. The next thing that happens, and think about this new workforce that's coming in, we're going to push out Mark's construction instruction videos, because we know they're framing window openings today. And there's something you really got to get right, and that's to slope the windowsill out, or whatever it is in the particular day. And he's going to measure it here, or check it here. Now the funny thing is, this was a friend's construction site. Guess which way that windowsill slopes? That's a well-intended guy. But you just don't know what you don't know. And very importantly for manufacturers, if you have these instructions that nobody reads the Tyvek, how to install the Tyvek stuff list, and we have a digital record that the tradespeople on that moment in time looked at it or not. So how could this not help quality? The next piece, and this is the heavy lift, this is the big one here. We're going to measure labor productivity. Here's how it happens, either by way of a text or an interactive voice recognition call if the tradesperson prefers that. The question is, what percentage of this activity is done? He hits this, and it automatically updates the critical path schedule every single day. Now, if that was 100% done, it shifts the schedule. It's more likely trades are not ahead of schedule, right? They're behind. So what we've done is we've built in predictive analytics to inform people downstream. We have hundreds of hours with subcontractors interviewing them about what's your biggest problem with builders, and they say dry runs. We show up and it's not ready, so we can look at the data and see if something is trending ahead or behind and automatically send that message out. So this is also another piece of this. You probably are not going to be able to read this near the back of the room, but this would be, so for that trade foreman, we have a performance rating, and the rating is very simple. It's actual to planned is what we're measuring. So he's got a 93% rating. Today he was 100% done. He's trending up. This is all good. And then what we've done here, because the only way this is going to work is figure this thing out from the bottom up. And what's the benefit for Bob, the tradesperson? So he's a 4.5-star guy. He's 93%. And how about this, builders? How would you feel about the tradesperson foreman rating you every day? He has the ability to do that. It's the Uber thing, because this is coming. And then here's Bob's history. This goes along with him. And the other benefit for Bob, at the end of the year, around mid-December, he gets he goes into his boss's office and gets the "it's been a bad year" speech. You're not getting your bonus. Bob could go, really? 93% rating. I'm going to press that look for opportunities button. So the other thing, here's Bad Bob. Bad Bob only got half done today. He only got half of his stuff done. He's trending down. Here's the very important follow-up question that needs to be asked that's not being asked as much as it should be. Why? Why? Press the button. Labor productivity, your expectation is crazy, etc. So we're kind of excited about how that works. Transparent communication for everyone. So the builder can decide who they want to share this information with. Isn't the bottom one on the right scary? So we say, a lot of builders that we talk to say, we want to be transparent. Really? How transparent do you want to be? Do you want to tell the consumer who built the house, when they built it, what the weather conditions are? Did they actually look at the instructions or not? Or maybe you just want to give them the numbers of the product and the Whirlpool dishwasher, what it is. And even for Whirlpool, right? So we got this VIN number like a car. We know everything in the house. If you sold, 50,000 dishwashers to a builder here, do you know where they are exactly? You should. We asked the question, how many people fill out the form for the warranty? I think we asked that of a carrier person the other day. Oh, about 50%. It's great. So that data is stored in Amazon Web Services. That information is stored, and we think that is going to be extremely valuable for all the players in the industry. We thought about, we want this certified. So DIGIBILT certifies something. Who cares? Then nobody knows who we are. They don't know who I am. So we reached out to an organization that knows a little bit about creating standards, and they partnered with us. I love saying that. They partnered with us because they have a problem, because kids, like my kids are, in their 20s, let's say, they don't know who UL is. We do. Most of us do anyway. So we're working with them to create a standard process a digital process by which homes are built. So benefits for the tradespeople, digitally coordinated plans and better instructions. If you ask builders to rate the construction drawings, the rating is not super high. Real-time scheduling, so no more dry runs. This is a biggie. And how about this? For a subcontractor to hold the builder accountable and other trades accountable. This will benefit people. And less frustration for the guys in the field actually doing the work. Critically important, right? Because this is the human part. And we're creating a marketplace and a rating system to ultimately make the tradesman more valuable. So this is very important in terms of adoption. Now, the cool thing about this, or at least the cool thing we think, is we've taken all this technology, we've put together Revit and scheduling tools and databases, but it boils down to a text. And it's captured that way. every single day, real-time information, super simple, and that's a big benefit for us. So then we look at benefits for a builder. We picked 440 grand for a house because that's kind of the average or the top 20 builders. Back to our why, increased labor productivity. I'm going to ask you right here. If a builder, if subcontractors followed this, what percentage gain do you think there could potentially be in labor savings? Percentage? 30? Excellent. Thank you. You'll get your $5. We just put 8% down, a low number. We went low, 12 grand. If you threw 4% less new stuff out, by the way, we're having our builder customers take pictures of the dumpster every day. It changed behavior. Do that. Just do that. It changed behavior. Maybe you're doing that already. And simplifying the building process, we believe we could save 2 hours of staff time, whether that's project management, superintendents, et cetera, per week. That adds up to a couple of grand. Increased profit is $17,000. That's some real money. And attract trade talent, be the builder of choice. Everybody wants to be the builder of choice. We're going to give the tradespeople tools to make them more productive. Next, and I'm going to close. Oh God, I got so much time. I'm going to finish early. Results. So as I mentioned earlier, this is not, and by the way, a number of years ago, I gave the I Had a Dream speech with PowerPoint presentation with bullets that would bring you to tears. Here we go. So we got this little project that we're doing in Williamsburg, Virginia, 75 homes. This guy is a big fan of Sam Rashkin and his work at Net Zero, the Net Zero program. Happens to be about just under a $500,000 home. They have two different product types. They got a front-loaded product here, and they have a rear-loaded product here, more urban, the alleys in the back. My favorite part about this beautiful picture is this. We have a digital model of this entire development. We can tell the builder how many tens of thousands of studs, how many sheets of drywall, et cetera, et cetera. And he was pretty happy about that. And we can give, demand signals to suppliers, et cetera. And kind of a final key point here. So Williamsburg does not have its own building department. It's a regional code authority in James City County, Virginia, that issues 6,500 permits a year, and it does 32,000 inspections with 8 people. So code authorities have a similar problem that trades have. They're losing the inspectors. And how many kids, 25-year-old kids do you know that say, I want to be a plumbing inspector? They refer to this as the gray tsunami in Canada, that it's estimated that some high percentage of the inspectors are going to tap out over the next few years, like 50%. Crazy. So we are leveraging UL's trusted name with code authorities, because they have one, and are using our technology for the purpose of doing these two things: expediting building permits and digitizing site inspections. And there's lots to talk about here. But the early results, this builder's been building there for decades. He's been on a 10-week cycle because it's a small, it's a resource-constrained code authority. The last permit were issued in 13 days. That's 81% faster. That's a $2,000 savings. And I will tell you, when the head of innovation with UL walks in the room with us with code authorities that are going like this initially, and then they open up and they say, yeah, we want to do this. It changes everything. And that's probably a low number. The carry, you guys know what your carry cost is. For save 8 weeks of carry, that's real money. And the consumer gets in there earlier. So we came back to these numbers again. And we're going to add our fee. It's about $3 grand a house. So the $30,000 for the the BIM modeling. This is lot specific. That's just a little scratch of the surface of what we do. That's 14 grand. And if the profit, just to look at how that works against a margin, let's say 10% just for easy math, that changes to 13%, and it's a 30% improvement. Now, I bet if I came up here and said, hey, I'm going to give you a path to 30% gain on your profit, you'd think I was nuts and get me out of here. But it's real. So here's our guy, Jay. There's a little video behind us, but I didn't think the sound would work. So you just believe me, I can send you that. So the math for Jay is 75 homes times 14 grand is $1 million. And we are just scratching the surface. it was awesome. When we measured the labor productivity of the siding group, the siding team, and they knew we were, they started with 5 guys, they ended up going back down to 3 guys. Because we found that those 2 guys were not that productive. So when you actually measure productivity, it changes things. James City County called us up and said, hey, we need this one last piece of information because we don't want UL to say we're holding this up. So it's, you know, and Gene knows, we've been, you've heard me talking about this for years and years and years. So it's pretty exciting, and I hit my time frame, and thank you so much. So.
I've just given John 5.1 out of 5 on your Digi rating, so.
Out of 5?
Out of 5, 5.1. We have time for a couple of quick questions, get more dialogue, but before we take John off, yeah.
Hey. Yes.
You know, I love the software and all
Yeah.
this, you're right on about learning the cost and
Yeah.
everything in the field, the productivity in the field. Who puts that information in? How do you control that? You got a
Great.
system that's gonna handle it very well.
Yes.
Who do you get these frameworks
Okay.
and stuff?
Who does it? It's the trade foreman. Okay, now usually the follow-up question is, well, he could lie. Yeah, he could. But you know what, we're compiling this information for your team so that your team ultimately is gonna, you know, do the quality control on the data that's coming in. But we're just taking a lot of the, you know, walking around and seeing where the schedule is at. So that's how we're doing it, by way of the trade foreman.
How difficult is it for you
Yeah.
to do that online?
Pardon me?
How difficult is that to get all the trades online with reporting information to you about their performance? Especially if it's a scattered lot condition, you're not
Yeah.
working right through
Yeah.
down the
It's-
street.
The answer to that is we're in the early innings here. We have a handful of customers that we're doing this on, and you know, it is a cultural shift. But then when they understand we're not doing it to beat them up, but we're doing it to help them, that's the change. And I think the important piece is the value that this brings to the subcontractors. You know, if you want to, this is a tool for the subs. And, you know, it's not going to be easy. And I'm sure there's going to be guys out there that are going to be really challenging to get. But, you know, just like anything, this is hard.
They know you're gonna want to come back and renegotiate it.
Well, but you know what? Here's the ultimate vision that we have is this. If over time we knew how long things take, and we will have that data over time, wouldn't it be great? And you as Toll Brothers are creating a marketplace in the Detroit market, right? Somewhere. Wouldn't it be awesome to go to the subcontracting community and say, hey, look, you know, materials cost is easier to nail down, right? You got that covered. But hey, subcontractor, look, here's the project, here's the time frame, and we will give you, you know, 75 or 8,200 bucks for the plumber. And if you follow these instructions, we're going to give you a path to predictable profitability. See, I would love that world. And I think that's coming.
One question,
Three questions for you.
is it on?
Three questions for you.
Yes, sir.
One, I assume it's a web-based or
Yes.
cloud-based
Yeah,
software?
yeah. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Could the software be tailored for architectural project management?
Absolutely.
And how many municipalities have you gotten approval in to use for permit review?
1. And we're coming to Maricopa County as our next set because we've got a couple of customers that are doing projects here. So that'll be number 2. And can you imagine as a builder to have the architect gets a text, are you done yet? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Awesome.
This has to be the last one.
Last quick question, Carlos.
On a previous slide, you had a reduction of labor,
Yes,
12% or something like that?
8%.
8%?
Yeah.
Does your firm help or assist the builder in negotiating that reduction? Or how is it they realize that reduction?
Well, we're not getting into that role because frankly, that's not scalable. But I think there's a fact. The fact is when you measure something, it improves. Other industries have proved that. So in the case of the project that I showed you, it's we have communicated to the subcontractors what the tool does, and then the builder negotiated pricing there between with the manufacturer's help, with the supplier's help, as well as the subcontractor. So it's still the builder.
The reason I asked is for most builders that go to from stick frame to wall panel,
Yeah.
that's one of the most difficult things is pulling those dollars back from the framer.
Sure. But we're going to have, over time, we're going to have that real data. So I think it'll be easier over time.
John, thank you.
Thanks.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, thank you.
Next, the birthday boy, Glenn. What's quality mean on the site? And give us some tips and tricks.
Thank you very much. Do we have this? All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for wishing me a happy birthday. I know at least one of you might be asking, yes, this was a birthday gift from my kids. So, wanted to spend a little bit of time this morning sharing with you there's been a lot of things we've talked about this morning, but kind of want to bring this back to more of a fundamental, kind of more of a philosophical discussion rather than kind of getting into specific solutions. I believe I'm up here on stage today because 5 years ago I began a journey to understand and really quantify really quantify what the cost to a builder's organization is of not delivering first-time quality. And it's significant. And some of you here have heard me talk about this in years past. I'm going to touch upon it, but I want to kind of move past that. Yesterday, there was a lot of great things that Cheryl Palmer shared with us, but there's one thing that stood out to me, and if you were listening to the answer to one of the questions she shared at the end, she commented that we're going to have to get it right at some point. We're going to do the right thing. Why not do it right the first time? And that really resonates to what Betsy's asked me to talk about here today is productivity. And Michael's already done this, but I'm going to kind of reframe this. We've got a diverse group of people here in the room. So for those left brain analytical type folks, we could define productivity as simply the production of the volume of useful output over time. So that's the math. For those creative types, right brain folks, you can read it this way: efficiency of person-machine factory system and converting inputs into useful outputs. The thing I wanted to highlight here is it really comes down to these three fundamental elements. You're looking at the volume produced over time, but it's not just the production of units. Those units have to achieve the particular quality expectations. Without that, anything that falls short of that is just considered waste. Okay, so it's volume, time, and quality. So we've heard McKinsey talk about quite a bit today. In 2017, McKinsey came out with their report, Reinventing Construction, A Route to Higher Productivity. Clark, thank you for referencing this and putting it in context. I'd also seen the FMI report from 20 years earlier, but I do agree, for whatever reason, this suddenly put productivity in construction on the map. You know, everybody now has been talking about it. These charts are showing up, throughout. There we go. Cheryl also took us back, that throwback 70 years ago to the advent of production home building. I think we all enjoyed that. But it is striking when you look at that and you compare that video to what we're doing today, and you realize that the fundamentals of production home building haven't really changed. But yet we're seeing productivity in the last 20 years grow significantly in other industries. So we all know McKinsey. We've been introduced, if you weren't familiar with FMI before this morning, we know them. You may not have heard of this research company. Wink, wink. Cottrell and Friends has been looking into the waste in our industry, quantifying that waste. And if we look at that very statistically based research, we can see that the improvement that we have seen in the reduction of waste in our industry has been stagnant over this same period of time, that productivity has been stagnant. And the trend that we see in recent years in terms of the amount of waste in our operations is increasing. So we're going the wrong direction as an industry. Research that we've done looked at home building companies that represented 10% of the homes delivered annually. Average construction schedule of 89 days. Over 10 days in that 89-day schedule are built in for slippage, for rework, for reinspection. None of that adds value to the system. Those are work days. That's research that we've done in interviewing builders. What would you say, Scott? Dramatically underestimated, Scott's saying. You say it's worse. You say it's worse. Great. Great. So, what are those days costing you? Well, this is my shout out to Scott. It's like he knew this was coming. So Scott and True North Development have created a save day calculator. So you can fill this out to determine what that cost per day is. Whether it's 10 days, 15 days, 25 days, whatever it is, it's significant. It's multiple hundreds of dollars per day. So as your cycle time increases, that's dollars wasted. At the same time, if the quality of our product is declining, that's also dollars wasted. Some of you have heard me talk about this. This is work that did with Teresa Weston from DuPont, looking at 13 publicly traded builders. And over the 5 years of this, looking at annual reports from 2012 to 2016, their warranty and litigation accruals, what are they setting aside to pay for warranty and litigation after closing, per home averages $22,278. $22,278, where $5,000 of that is set aside because history suggests we will spend that in warranty, and $17,000 roughly for litigation. Now I agree, not all of these litigation expenses are construction related, but none of it adds value. It's all waste in the system. So, we look at this spread between productivity in construction versus productivity in manufacturing. We look at this and say, is this an opportunity? Is this something we want to go after? Or in today's climate, is this something that we have to go after? Is this a necessity in our business? I'll let you decide whether you consider it an opportunity in your market or a necessity. But what do we do about it? If it's something we're going to go after, what's the solution here? We have seen this done in other industries, and it's not a new idea. So if we go back 1950s, Dr. Deming was working with Toyota, put together this simplified continuous improvement model, plan, do, check, act. Okay? Plan out what it is that you're going to go after, do something about it, and then measure whether or not it's making the impact that you have. In 1980s, Motorola kind of refined this process, something we now know as Six Sigma, the DMAIC principles for continuous improvement, where we define what it is that we're going after, then we measure it. We measure how our current operations are doing. We then analyze the results of those measurements. We take some action to improve, and if those improvements are gaining us what we're looking for, then we can control it. Can this be done in home building? I absolutely believe that it can be done in home building, and it is being done in home building. Fortunately, it's not just me. This is the only one here who believes it. Shout out to Jeff Bellchambers here from Toll Brothers. This article was published this week, the Data-Driven Builder in Professional Builder Magazine. Jeff, and I didn't put him up to this quote, you have find out what you can measure from what you're doing objectively, gauge performance, and identify opportunities to improve. So why would you not plan what you're going to, how you're going to run your operations and measure the results of your current operations in order to make improvements? It's pretty straightforward. We know the formula. The formula is increasing volume, production of useful outputs, reducing time. That's the formula. But it's hard. It's hard in our industry, and absolutely the challenges that we face in the home building industry, certainly the on-site home building industry, are different than what we have in the manufacturing process. But I would argue that as home builders, we can define what it is that we're trying to improve. We can measure our current operations. There's ways we can do this. We can analyze the results. We can take actions to improve those results. The real challenge in our industry is controlling those improvements. For those parents in the room, you may remember those times when you had that toddler and that panacea when you finally cleaned up the toy room and you could see the carpet. And then you turn around and that became a blank canvas for your child to suddenly go paint on, and all the toys get dumped onto the room. The moment that you had control and you felt like you had ownership of your house back, fleeting moment, it's gone. We heard yesterday about how important pets are. So if any of you here in the room have tried to train a puppy, again, just when we think we've got it under control, they remind us that we don't. We look at this from a business standpoint. We can look at this and say, okay, we've just finally got everything together. We've got our systems in place. Everybody's properly trained. And then somebody moves the cheese. The rules of the game change. Okay. In our industry, it's tough. Codes are changing. The products that we have to choose from are changing. Pricing is always changing. The trade contractors, which trades are we putting on the job site, and then what labor is actually on that trade contractor's crew is constantly changing. Our employees, turnover is still a significant challenge in our industry. What are our customers looking for? What are municipalities looking for? What are the neighbors to the projects that we're building looking for or not looking for? Financing rates, insurance expectations and coverages, what's the latest in the litigation trends? There are a tremendous amount of external variances to our industry, which make control extremely difficult. But on top of these external variances, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We are allowing, in good times in the industry, to say, well, we need to offer this flexibility, we need to do that. Clark talked about being agile. I think you can be disciplined and agile at the same time. You can be committed and agile at the same time. They're not in opposition of one another. But without that discipline, without that commitment to reducing those variabilities that we have control over, that productivity line that we see is going to continue to stay flat. So, not all is lost. Not all hope is lost. Clark talked about, or I think Michael mentioned this report and encouraged you to take a look at it. Yes, they have some great charts that kind of paint a bleak picture, or you could look at it optimistically and say there's great opportunity here. But they also put forth 7 recommendations. Very high level, big picture industry recommendations. But through them all, there's this thread of regaining control in our industry. So I'm just going to quickly walk through each of these 7 recommendations and then try to bring it back to home building. So, number 1, reshape the regulation and raise transparency. Best practice regulation would be moving toward outcome-based, more standardized building codes. Okay? Not surprising, but is it happening? I would look to the 2015 Energy Code and say with the introduction of the performance path, we're beginning to see signs where the code industry is saying, okay, we don't have to necessarily mandate exactly the path that you get there. We're more interested in the outcome. We're more interested in, does the product deliver on a particular expectation that we have set? And if so, we'll let you figure out how you're going to get there. So we're seeing signs of this, I think, in the U.S. home building industry. Recommendation number 2, rewire the contractual framework. The industry must move away from the hostile contracting environment that characterizes many construction projects to a system focused on collaboration and problem solving. I'd like to be able to give you some example here. There's probably project-related contracting. This isn't the world that IBACOS operates in. So in terms of trying to bring it home to this audience, you've seen it, Clark?
Absolutely. There's an entire new delivery method on the non-residential side called integrated project delivery.
Yep.
And there's integrated form of agreement where all of the key players on a project are actually signing the same contract. So you get reimbursed at the cost level, and then there's a profit pool that everyone shares in. And if somebody screws up, everybody suffers. And so that's beginning to happen. Large companies, Procter & Gamble, is moving down the path with their construction. We're working on we've been doing a lot of work with large companies like driving toward integrated project delivery. So there are models out there. We, in this room, in this industry, are way behind the curve.
Yeah. So I read about that in preparation for this, but yeah. So integrated project
IPD, integrated
project development delivery. Yeah. So bringing it home, I thought I'd throw out there. Everybody here is familiar with Extreme Home Makeover, and there has to be, a lot of, clearly there's an opportunity by having everybody singularly focused on one shared objective. If without that, we wouldn't be able to build a house in 7 days. Okay, so it's a different contracting mechanism. It's not building out, a 450 unit community. I get that, but it can be done, and it's great to see that it's being done in the commercial construction sector. Recommendation number 3, improve procurement and supply chain management. Again, not a space that IBACOS operates in, but digitizing procurement and supply chain workflows will enable more sophisticated logistics management and just-in-time delivery. There's a lot of work that's being done in this area with suppliers. Many of you are in the room here, but I put Cottrell out there sort of at the one end extreme where they intend to totally own and control the complete supply chain. Okay. Recommendation number 3, rethink design and engineering processes. Owners and contractors alike can shift mindsets from custom scopes for each project to more standardization and repeatability. This is an area where I do think we have a leg up as production home building over commercial construction, but just how much repeatability and standardization do we have? So the work that IBACOS does, or part of the work that we do, is we enable production home builders to drive quality assurance programs company-wide to improve their bottom line, improve their customer satisfaction, reduce their risk. And so we typically engage with our clients initially when they are revamping their playbook. What are the rules of engagement? What are the expectations of our trade contractors and of our employees? When they're on a job site, this is how we expect things to be done. So establishing that standardization and then really keeping control over it is key. Reskilling the workforce. Change cannot be achieved without investment in retooling a workforce that is undergoing major demographic shifts, from aging managers to increasing number of migrant or laborers. So once we have the playbook, then we need to make sure that all the players on the field understand that playbook, understand their role associated in order to execute the plays properly. Everybody's got to get bought in to playing the game, because if they're not going to perform their role while on the field, the play will not be as successful. We've got to look at it as the team is winning the game, not the individuals, players. Improving on-site execution, careful planning, coordination of different disciplines on-site, along with the application of lean principles, can reduce waste and variability. So we've established the playbook. We've got everybody properly trained and aligned just in time when they need that on the job site, and then we have to hold them accountable. So now we've got to hold them accountable to delivering on what their job description is, because without that accountability, all you're doing is kind of putting out there, hey, this is what we want you to do, and then hope that they're going to deliver on that. Finally, infuse digital technology, new materials, and advanced automation. I talked about this in the earlier session. Technology alone will not address poor productivity. A fundamental culture change is needed alongside adequate systems, processes, and buy-in from the field to embrace these solutions. So if you're holding people accountable, they need to know that you're measuring it. This goes right back to what John was saying about if you've taken pictures of the dumpster, if they know that you're measuring their productivity, they will inherently, it is human nature that we will respond differently if we know we're being watched, if we know we're being monitored. So 7 recommendations from the McKinsey report. I do encourage you to read it as well, but it's a lot more than just charts and graphs that tell us how crappy an industry we are. There's opportunity here and some guidance. So my advice fundamentally to you, regardless of where you are on the productivity spectrum, set a course to gaining greater control. Take control of those variabilities that you have, but don't just gain that control, you have to retain it, okay? That chart, actually go back to it. Let's see. I meant to highlight this. Let me go back to it real quick. Sorry about this. Here we go. So it is no accident that this decline in productivity aligns with the uptick in the industry. And this, albeit subtle, uptick in productivity aligns with the great housing recession. As an industry, we found the need to get greater control over our operations. Okay? So we can do it, but can we stick with it? So doing so, I'm going to wrap up here. Doing so will increase productivity. It will increase your predictability when all of that translates into increased profitability. How was that?
Stay there just for a sec. Couple of quick questions, and then we're going to break out. Any questions, Glenn? On the floor?
Let's do let's do 15 minutes so we make sure we have enough time.
Bless you.
It's my mom's niece.
Okay, so Mark, do you have a question? Got a mic?
Thank you, Glenn. Well done. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
You don't look a day over 30. It's amazing. One of the quick things I just wanted to mention, and we all have struggled with this, is the trade thing. And I think what Carlos had mentioned about, we find that the trades don't really want to share. And so all these productivity gains that we try to put in place still come down to what happens in field. And we don't build houses, trades do. And I think the difficulty is finding that the knowledge base of the trade, as well as the execution in the field, is the big mystery. John did a great job of bringing up the opportunity to maybe track that. And I think getting the trades to actually agree to commit to an improved process is part of the challenge. And it's all a big mystery. John with the BMC has been seeing this with ReadyFrame, the idea of pre-cutting your materials. And the framers push back and say, no, I don't want to do that, even though it's more efficient. I've got less waste and I have no saws on site. It's about the same. Right. And the challenge is to go back and say, I know it's not the same, but because you have a challenge to the number of people you're able to hire that are skilled, how about if we got you to build more houses more effectively? We see the same thing in the HVAC world. Every time we try to right-size HVAC systems, the heating contractor pushes back and said, no, I think it's 5 tons. You're like, well, actually, it's 2.5 tons. It was, well, it's the same price. And if you went from 2.5 tons to 5, it would be $1,500. It's always when you go back, it's the same, and when you go up, it's more. So I think part of this is making that we have to take control over making sure that they are truly accountable for what we expect, specifications, details. HVAC is math. If you don't like math, I'm sorry, it's math. Right. So I help following people along that process, giving them a place to run the ducts, getting them engaged in what happens. But there's a lot of gaps that I think can be closed by us as an industry holding people accountable for what we truly believe is the right number. The savings that John showed at his process truly will make that difference. You just have to commit to it. Right. And I think committing to their expectation education is really interesting. Chuck had brought up things with Pulte. He said, if we can't find a trade contractor willing to do this, we'll go to a marketplace and find one that is, and we'll ask them to open up another division someplace else and say, go ahead and start one over here. We'll grant you all the houses. We've got the volume to help you out, but you either change or we'll find somebody who will. Right. But accepting inadequate performance is not going to work. Right. And I think that's the great opportunity that we still have.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, the chart Len showed at the end, we call it the heat map. That would be, on that builder, theoretical builder, is all his divisions and all the key systems and the risk issues he's going through. So when we help them point out what they are, then you've got to do what Mark said, go deeper. Why have we got that water intrusion issue? And start holding them accountable with action plans.
Right. But if we just were to go back to, John's opportunity savings, $17,000 a unit or something like that, and you're saying that's just scratching the surface, that's a decent amount of money that can be spread across a lot of stakeholders in this organization. It doesn't all have to stay with you. I've said this a bit tongue-in-cheek, and I don't believe there's any plaintiff attorneys here in the room, but if they are, so be it. I'll still stand behind it. Everybody can win by improving the quality and productivity of our industry with the exception of the plaintiff attorneys. And I'm okay with that.
Scott, you had a question, last question?
Everything, and Mark and I are good friends, we talk all the time. Everything Mark said I agree with but it is very transactional, like simple, okay, we're gonna say this to this, you're gonna do that. And a huge source of why these suppliers and trades will not open up and will not consider the change is lack of trust. It's a learned lack of trust because of their interaction with, I'll just say, so many of the builders. So if you're going to get them to really open up and want to work with you for mutual improvement, they got to believe it. Was mentioned earlier about how you're just going to take this and yeah, it's going to be nice for 6 months here. Then you're going to, all the improvements, bid it with someone else and I'm going to get cut out. That's what they're always thinking because that's their experience. So the trust factor is the elephant in the room on this one, and it's huge.
Thank you. We got a lot of rapid fire, great ideas to share. Apparently, hello, let's go. I missed this table last time, so I'm going to give them the first opportunity. They have the second question, right? How should builders better engage with their trade contractors to drive quality and productivity on the job site? So,
all right. I'm not sure if this mic's on. There you go. So we had a decent discussion here. One of the things that I personally think is an important piece that we could do is we could do more with existing trades. There already is that whole concept of more with less. There already is less. So it's really about figuring out how to do more with what's there. And today we've got this complex system of many trades and you throw in the labor pimps into the equation and the value that they actually provide, which is low, but there's a high payoff there for them. And to somehow figure out a way to get to the trade and eliminate that step so where more and more jobs are completed by people that are on the job site. So they're not traveling as much to the job site. That footprint for, that carbon footprint of driving is less. And there's more work and productivity being created by the existing people that are there. You can actually afford to pay them more, which would attract them to stay. So you'd have a more consistent trade base. You'd have to engage them a little bit differently, and find out where that could work. But that's just one of our ideas from our table, and I'll hand it over to Scott for another.
This group could have done an all-day workshop on this. We got a lot of really good stuff. Carlos was very passionate about you got to make it two-way. You got to have the feedback from the trades into the organization, how critical that is, and then a quick list of some things. Give that opportunity to give feedback to the builder. Two-way scopes of work have to be two-way. And by the way, I learned this from Mike Rhodes, Chicago. 30 years ago, the first page of your scope of work should only say one thing and one thing only, a list of what the suppliers and trades have a right to expect from you, the builder. Then go tell them all the things that they have to do or you're going to shoot them. But you first, that's how they read usually. But on that first page, just like clean job site, it should say on the first plot, you have a right to arrive at a clean job site. Otherwise, you never can ask them to leave it clean. And trust, we talked a lot about how trust is critical in all this. With trust, they'll open up. A great example Carlos made was picnics instead of banquets. You spend a whole lot of money on a big banquet, everybody come and everything, it's a high-level people and this and that. Now, take that money and do Friday noon picnics, and I've seen builders do this, it's amazing. Have pizza or subs, whatever, tacos in the field where the guys are, and you'll really get a response to that and open them up and get them talking about it. There's one thing, and I've been a madman about this for 30 years now, and it'll go until the day I die, which might not be too far if my brain keeps frying out here. But you have to buy on total cost, not bid price. If you want to get dignity and respect, show them and really understand who your best trades are, and that will engage. We're still this industry 90% plus bid price alone, and the only thing that tells you is you're using the wrong numbers. So total cost, and then the basics, 100% complete plans, scopes, option selections, and have them involved in an upstream, 100% great bid packages, a perfect start package. Bill Pulte called that the Bible, the start package. It had to be as if it was written by God. And then pay them fairly and on time, treat them always with dignity and respect.
Good. Thank you. Good points. Everyone's going to have more points, but captured well. So pick your top three. Let's go to Stitch Fix. So, oh, sorry, I didn't mean three, I meant two. So, come on, don't get me in trouble. Stitch Fix, where are you?
Right here.
Same question.
I think a lot of our conversation was similar to the previous table, the kind of things that Scott talked about. But I think there's a lot of analogy to the automotive industry where the OEMs at one point really dictated to the tier ones how they would do business together, and it was not really a collaborative relationship. But then you watch what happened in the automotive industry over 15 or 20 years as the tier ones became bigger than the automotive companies, and really the automotive companies could no longer strong arm the tier ones, and so it forced collaboration, and really an analogous situation in the home building industry, that oftentimes the trade is bigger than the builder. And so it just has to be a collaborative way of dealing with one another. And the builder can't come in and have a unique set of requirements. And if every different builder has a unique set of requirements using different software, having different processes, then the trade has to adapt to every builder. We also talked a little bit about just all the indirect costs of, and the trade has a requirement for even flow, just like the builder does. And so that needs to be recognized in the conversation. And so, yeah.
Was it two
the whole conversation about low bid and that low bid shouldn't win the day. There needs to be more trust and conversation.
Good points. Thank you. Okay, Airtable.
Behind you.
They made me do this again.
Yep.
Okay, this is going to be quick. We came up with 4 recommendations. First of all, establish the value proposition. Articulate that efficiency equals more money for all, so it's a win-win for everyone involved. Treat them like partners, not commodities, and continue to cultivate those relationships. The 4th recommendation would be consistency, both in product and in schedule delivery. So we just felt that when there's trust on both sides, then everyone will deliver.
Cool. Thank you. Last one on this question, unity. That was unity. Oh.
Yep. So we have 20 items, I'll say in 2. So it's communication was a key, and that's go and increase collaboration early and often on projects. Do trade councils to let them have buy-in early on. The second one that I'll mention as standout is measure. So communicate what expectations are and then measure against those, both as builders as well as trades, how everyone is performing up against it. So.
Those are good. Obviously, you start to see common factors. It'd be fun when we put the notes together. We come up with those big key drivers that are 80% of the issue. Let's go back to the first question. What would Alliance Innovation Homes do? Where do you see the greatest potential advancements for driving quality and productivity on site over the next 5 years? Peloton.
Okay, so this is our top 2. I'm going to go with number 1. It says stop doing stupid shit. So I think I just paraphrased most of what Scott said. Yeah. But then one of the other thing that we said was that we've got to change the culture from an adversarial culture, adversarial contracting methods, to collaboration and to working together, sharing information, driving transparency, and also sharing reward, so that it's a two-way street with the builder and with the suppliers, third-party professional services as well. So those are the 2. Change the culture and stop doing stupid shit.
I like that one, stupid shit. Amber. What's stupid? I mean, where's Amber?
Right here.
What we came up with is builders getting involved with our young people in high schools, other schools, show them the benefits of technology being used now versus in the past, since we have so much more technology, get them involved and get them involved with our trade partners, understand the trade, what it's about, and then how much money they can earn.
Great, good points.
And we had a second one, Michael.
Okay, go.
Something we've learned over the last couple of Alliance meetings, I've learned, is that the builders do three things. They develop, they build, and they sell. And I say developing's fine, selling's fine, but building is a pain in the butt. So get rid of it. Let's move towards, talking about 5 years strategically, let's get rid of building. Let's move to complete modular construction. Fully integrated walls, panels, rooms, whatever, plug and play. They arrive on a job site. Let's just have a plan to take the labor out of it so builders can focus on what they like doing and what may be easier for them.
So the brand.
Yeah.
Good. Food for thought there. Wink. Where did Wink?
Yeah, I won't take too much here because I think most of our ideas have been covered. We kind of said the same thing at the end of the day. As builders, we don't build the houses, our trade partners do. So it's about building trust, developing that relationship, and that's a two-way street. Although we did talk about digitizing, automating the on-site oversight. So until we're in a fully modular world, we have to continue to introduce tools that they can use on site to make it simple, stupid, maybe technologically based, but not so technologically heavy that the trade partners can't use it and it isn't effective for us.
Thank you. Last one on this, Alibaba. Where's Alibaba?
Pretty well aligned with the Amber table over there as well. You know, it's our responsibility as the builders to get the young people involved. We can't leave it up to anybody else. There's a whole generation of kids that don't think that it's fun or sexy or they can make any money in the construction industries. And if their parents didn't go to college, they're probably more likely not to go to college as well. So if we can get them involved in a trade school and show them how to run a business and be in the trades, we can really feed that pipeline. So, I know personally, we work with a lot of different institutions, higher education, trade schools, and develop those programs so we can at least feed the trades. It's a lot easier to get a site superintendent and teach them the critical path on how to build a house as long as they have the right stuff upstairs. You're just looking for a kid that's motivated, but to be out in the snow and the rain and the weather every day building the houses is definitely something else to find. So I think it's our responsibility to do that. And then off-site manufacturing is really the other one. How do you streamline making the components of the home off-site, delivering them, making it a non-linear process. So, same page.
Good ideas. All right, let's move question. How can manufacturers and suppliers help drive productivity on site? We're going to start with the icon table.
Okay, so a couple of ideas here. First was that manufacturers should be doing some research and development on products that can eliminate or reduce labor in the field. So a great example here from LP Building Products was that they had prefab walls that now have fire retardant spray inside the wall. So it's one extra step that's removed from the field and it's just done in the factory instead. Second idea here is that those manufacturers should train their trades on new products to improve productivity in the field. Same thing, and to support them in the field. That if there's an issue, something going on, it's easy to deploy a support team that can go out and help. An example that we gave was Tyvek, that has the ability to deploy a support team out to the field if there's something going wrong. Next is a thoroughly documented install spec, so that again out in the field that it's clear and concise how to install whatever the product is.
Okay, hold on. That's the last one. 2. Sorry. Got to move on. We'll capture him. We'll capture him. Sorry.
I don't want to get in trouble, remember?
I'm the time now.
All right. No, you're doing a good job. Thank you, though. Those are good. Shopify. Where's Shopify?
Damn. Okay, number 1. Manufacturer supplier should take control of the labor quote, and so they do the installation, happens all the time, whether it's components, siding, wall systems, fireplaces, stair systems, so own your labor, whether you subcontract it out, but you own that. Number two is it's a total improvement in communication, training, beyond transactional, provide work instructions, material, get on the job sites before the process and during the process and then after the measure, so.
Good. Boy, that was quick. Thank you. Target. Target.
Similar to what Mike said, it is about communication and collaboration. If you look at it, there's 3 steps from the manufacturer to the supplier to the builder to the trade. So when you're talking about going on site, there's a lot of putting green between the manufacturer and the trade. So whatever that feedback loop is, to understand where the pain points are, where the bottlenecks are, it might originate from the builder. It might be the supplier looking down the path and seeing what's there. Could come from the supplier, it could come from the trade. But I don't know that anybody owns that feedback loop. So if you can kind of ensure that the engagement, collaboration, communication has some path to go down, you're going to solve a lot of problems. And the second thing was training and certification. The more suppliers, manufacturers can make sure they provide the very best training, yeah, then you're going to validate the process and you're going to have less mistakes.
Good. Last one on this, sweet green.
We're over here. Here
George,
we are.
I heard that voice.
Yeah. Kind of thinking of this as 2 levels, as a kind of a short-term answer and a long-term answer, and it's going to tie somewhat to Rodney and what Mike were saying. Short-term, living with the existing system that we have, it's how do you train better, how do you support teams, simplify installation instructions, have it on the product, videos, so on and so forth. So I would call these marginal kinds of improvements on an existing system. But I'm not so sure that one of the major root problem of productivity and not getting better is that we're tied to a subcontractor system that's disaggregated. And that if we started saying as a manufacturer supplier, if I'm a solution provider rather than a material provider, how might that change? And it gets back to supply, install, a variety of ways of thinking about providing those kinds of things on the way to being a super sub. And also materials that have multiple functions. We saw with Hercule, it was an insulation, it was a structural piece, it was a water barrier, all in one thing delivered. But I think this mindset of understanding that there's going to be high value when you can have fewer players who play together, whether you use the auto industry as an example or whatever, that until we get there, all it's going to be marginal things and we're never going to get full productivity improvement like we should until we have a fundamental restructure of the way we think about the industry.
Oh, thank you. Last question. This is a new one for us. How can the insurance groups help develop value-added solutions for builders? So let's pick up with water, Jen.
Right behind you again.
Yep.
So we really talked about 2 things. One is really having the insurance companies be part of the construction process, be engaged, understand how that works. And then just sort of what Glenn was referencing, quality systems that they support and reward. So having quality systems in place or helping develop quality systems that they would then reward if people implement.
It's a great, simple concept, eh? Yeah. Punch bowl. Over here.
So we looked at it from the consumer standpoint in terms of being able to, add value. So 2 things we said. One, potentially using technology to share more information with the insurance company. So the idea of using a BIM model to supply to the insurance company so they know they have a better idea of what they're actually insuring in terms of materials, being able to identify potential materials that are more risk versus less risk. So they have a better idea of what they're insuring, and then The second part of that would be then looking at some type of rating system. I use the example, something similar to like a fortified home program, but focus it around quality and being able to quantify quality. So an insurance company could look at a certain level of quality, identify that with homes built to that level, they have less claims, and so then ultimately we'd be able to hopefully lower premiums to homeowners.
Where's Berkshire Hathaway now? All right, for rent.
And then the last one's going to be Sakasui, Jenny.
For rent.
So I think we're repeating some themes here, but again, just making sure that the insurance companies they're a partner and they're not only just an enforcer in the process. I think that's the best way to figure out what the value adds really are. And a couple ways to do that is to have them, recommend training opportunities and also opportunities for process improvement, and also maybe providing, anonymous best practices based on their experience. And the other part of that came up was, they could provide the training directly instead of just recommending where that training could be elsewhere. But I think a good one that we came up with was that the insurance companies could participate in the code development and the code update and the code review process. Then it could actually provide a lot more kind of real world applicability to, the codes themselves.
Good.
So,
last one was Sekisui House.
Yeah, I think just echoing what was already said, but until you prove to the insurance companies that you're actually reducing the risk by investing in technologies, BIM and Everbuilt and other things, they're not going to be incentivized to reduce your premium. So really proving out that case that you are reducing risk, your job sites are cleaner, you're creating efficiencies, and the whole process is just better. That's really the only way, I think, to really leverage and show that you are reducing risk, and you should be, or switch, right?
Yeah.
We all know that, but so that's
Good. Well, thank you, everyone. We heard a lot after we started moving a year, 18 months ago towards off-site, said this is a real value-added solution. And then everyone loved that, but we also had several recommendations that from members and partners that said, don't forget those, some of the baby steps we can take. Don't have to jump straight away to panels or modules. There are things we can do in productivity and quality. So this has been part of that sort of rebalance in here, and a lot of good ideas. We'll take these, we'll document them, and then look which of these topics come out as the next hot things that we can dig into. Betsy's got a design for virtual roundtables or maybe sub-meetings. There's already a lot of expertise. And again, the model is the Alliance can bring ways to improve tomorrow and tools people can use. That's what we want to do. So, well, round of applause to you guys for a busy morning. Thank you.